The phone rang just as Julian Hart, the billionaire CEO of Hart Industries, was about to leave his office for the evening. The sleek glass building seemed to hum with the quiet anticipation of the city below, but Julian barely noticed. His days were meticulously structured, filled with board meetings, high-stakes deals, and strategic calls. Yet this ring carried a tone that cut through all of that, a tone of urgency, the kind that made him pause mid-step. "Mr. Hart?" The nurse's voice trembled slightly, yet carried the authority of someone accustomed to life and death matters. "This is St. Mary's Hospital. We have a patient here. Her name is Clara Bennett. We tried contacting all her listed emergency contacts, and you're the only one we could reach, sir. She's in critical condition." Julian's brow furrowed as he adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous habit he had never thought he'd exhibit. "Clara Bennett?" The name didn't spark any immediate recognition. He asked for clarification, his voice calm yet edged with curiosity. "She's been in an accident," the nurse explained. "A hit and run. We need someone to authorize her treatment, make decisions. The doctors insist she needs immediate attention." Julian's mind raced. Emergency contact? Why on earth would this young woman have him listed? And then, fragments of memory surfaced. A company volunteer program, a charity event for underprivileged youth. Clara had been assigned as an assistant to the charity committee, a college student with bright eyes and an earnest smile, always volunteering for tasks that no one else wanted. Over the years, she had helped organize fundraisers, visit shelters, and coordinate community programs. Julian had admired her dedication, but their interactions had always been brief, professional, distant. He was her emergency contact? "I'll be there immediately," he said, already pulling on his coat. Driving through the bustling city streets, Julian's mind was a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, concern, and an unfamiliar, gnawing sense of responsibility. He had spent decades building companies and accumulating wealth, mastering the art of control. But no business deal, no boardroom negotiation could have prepared him for this moment, where another person's life rested in his hands. When he arrived at St. Mary's, Clara's mother, her real mother, he later learned, had abandoned her years ago, was nowhere to be found. The receptionist directed him to the ICU, where the beeping monitors and sterile smell of antiseptic made his chest tighten. A nurse led him to Clara's side. She was pale, unconscious, a tangle of tubes and monitors, yet somehow still radiating the fragility and resilience of someone who had fought for every chance in life. Julian took her hand gently. It was smaller than he expected, trembling under his grip. He had no children of his own. He had built his empire around the principles of success, efficiency, and control. Yet here he was, facing an entirely different kind of responsibility. A part of him, the part that had been numbed by boardroom victories and quarterly profits, stirred, awakened by the gravity of this young woman's vulnerability. Hours passed. Julian remained at Clara's side, reading to her softly from a book he hadn't touched since college, recounting stories about the city she loved, about ordinary acts of kindness, about hope. He whispered encouragement, shared laughter, and sometimes sat in silence, letting the steady rhythm of the ICU lull him into reflection. For the first time in years, Julian realized that life wasn't measured in contracts signed or deals closed. It was measured in the quiet, unseen moments where human connection could make all the difference. Then, just as the night seemed endless, Clara stirred. Her eyelids fluttered, and a weak smile broke across her face. "Mr. Hart?" she whispered, her voice raspy, barely audible over the monitors. Julian's eyes filled with a mixture of relief and wonder. "You're going to be okay, Clara. You're strong. I promise you, you're going to pull through." Her recovery was slow but steady. And during those days, Julian discovered stories about Clara he had never known. How she had survived foster homes. How she had worked multiple jobs while pursuing her studies. How she had always looked out for others even when the world seemed indifferent to her struggles. In witnessing her courage, Julian felt a stirring in his own heart. A recognition that wealth alone could never protect against the vulnerabilities of life. But compassion could. As Clara regained her strength, Julian made a decision that surprised even him. He used his influence to ensure she had access not only to medical care, but to opportunities she had never dreamed of. Scholarships, mentorship programs, and personal guidance from experts across his network opened doors that had long been closed. Yet he didn't do it for recognition or accolades. He did it because he saw, in Clara's fight, a reflection of what humanity could achieve when guided by empathy rather than profit. One evening, months after the accident, Julian and Clara sat on a park bench overlooking the city skyline, the sun dipping below the horizon in hues of gold and rose. She leaned back, breathing in the crisp air, and smiled. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice steady, her eyes glistening with gratitude. Julian shook his head gently. "You don't need to thank me, Clara. You've done everything yourself. I only helped you see it." She turned to him, a question in her gaze. "Why me? You didn't even know me well." He thought for a moment, then smiled softly. "Because sometimes the people who seem insignificant in the grand scheme of the world are the ones who remind us why it matters. You reminded me what it means to care. That's why." In that moment, Julian understood that true wealth wasn't measured by the zeros in a bank account or the grandeur of an office. It was measured by the lives touched, the compassion extended, and the courage to act when someone else needed you most. Clara's survival, her resilience, her very presence had transformed him in ways no business achievement ever could. Word of Julian's involvement in Clara's recovery spread quietly, not through headlines or press releases, but through the lives of the people they helped together. Others, inspired by their story, began volunteering, donating, mentoring, and reaching out to those in need. A ripple effect of kindness took hold in the city, small acts growing into something larger than anyone could have predicted. Years later, Clara would remember the night of the accident, not just as a terrifying moment, but as the night her life had changed forever. Not because she was rescued by wealth or status, but because someone saw her humanity, took responsibility without hesitation, and offered a hand when the world seemed to have none to spare. Julian, on his part, carried the lesson with him through the rest of his life. In the quiet moments when the city hummed below and the glow of his office lights reflected off the glass walls, he thought of Clara's smile and the fragile grip of human connection. He had learned that a single act of compassion, taken in a moment of uncertainty, could ripple into a lifetime of change, not just for the person saved, but for the one who dared to care. The story of the billionaire CEO who answered a call in the middle of the night became a quiet testament to the power of selflessness, the enduring strength of kindness, and the unexpected ways life can remind us of what truly matters. And for Julian and Clara, it became a bond unbroken by time, a reminder that hope, courage, and empathy are the richest treasures any of us can hold.